Hi everyone, welcome to Ethernal Realms and welcome to the month ahead astrology reading. Make sure you check your sun, moon, and rising signs for a comprehensive view of the month. Additionally, I would recommend watching the tarot reading of the month ahead to get a different perspective. While you will know the astrology in advance through this session, I will also send you a reminder when the astrological events are near. All you have to do is subscribe, hit the bell, and you will be notified as the events occur through my community page. I occasionally post behind the scenes, meditation guidance, quizzes, and polls, which you can check out for yourself. And it goes without saying that you will be notified when new videos are out, such as other zodiac readings and pick a card tarot readings as well. If you prefer to cut down the guesswork about your month ahead, you can always connect with me via Etsy to get a personalized week-by-week month ahead tarot reading paired with the general astrology. Enough about me, let's talk about you. So let's talk the overview of September. Okay, I'm going to divide this into separate storylines. There are a couple of things happening in parallel, and at some points in time, different things are being activated. So just the general themes going on here. Let's talk about the first one. Is that in the month of September, there are going to be lots of changes on the personal level. And that's because we have Mercury and Venus changing direction. Both of them are going to go direct. And whenever that happens, on especially the personal planets of, the Venus, Mercury, even Mars, we experience lots of shifts in our own mindset and how we go about life. Okay, so on a personal level, lots of changes. But apart from that, we also have Jupiter going retrograde on the same day that Venus goes direct. And that's interesting because it's sort of like both of them are moving in parallel, but they're moving in opposite directions. So they kind of see each other, but they can't really meet at this point. So when Jupiter was active, Venus was not, and now Venus is active, so Jupiter is not. And that's going to be an interesting dynamic to see. But apart from that, we also have Saturn in retrograde, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto in retrograde. So everything is retrograde for like the first few days of the month, and then slowly one by one things start going direct. That is Mercury and Venus. So whenever the bigger planets are retrograde, they're retrograde for a longer time compared to Mercury, let's say. So whatever changes occur on that level, we are more susceptible to absorbing because we don't quite understand it, or it's not yet conscious and it's kind of happening in the background, or this is like involuntary changes that we were not initiating but is introduced through the universe. Okay, so it's sort of a time where the universe is speaking louder than we are able to speak. Okay, so there will be less resistance as a result of this. That's the plus side. We are able to accept the guidance and the intuitive nudges much more easily. And because Mercury, Venus are direct, we are able to kind of incorporate that in a personal level. For example, if you feel like your belief system is not doing you any favors, or that the structures you have in your life are not working in your favor, then there is this opportunity to shift those things. But that initial feeling is going to be the universe speaking. That's the trigger that comes from your soul, from your subconscious, whatever. So yes, there will be changes in beliefs, priorities, and mindsets with Jupiter, Venus, and Mercury changing directions. The next story that's happening is that our focus this month is shifting when the sun is moving from Virgo season into Libra season. So when the sun is in Virgo, there's also a lot of earth activities, earth trines, conjunctions, movements, and so on, right? So there's a lot of earthly matters which are going to happen, and it's going to be a dynamic phase because, again, Mercury is in an earth sign in Virgo, and it changes direction, which changes, again, the flow of things. When the sun moves into Libra, we're going to talk more about relationships and communication, what commitment means or partnership means, and how to find equality and balance and all of that. And this is going to be a more rejuvenating phase because Venus is out of shadow by the time, or at least, it is really, really getting out of shadow almost. So it's going to be, whenever a planet comes out of retrograde phase, basically it is essentially rested and rejuvenated. So it's kind of gaining power through the post-shadow phase, and then it's going to fully glow in its eminence, basically, right? So in Libra season, Venus, the ruler of Libra, is going to come into full strength. So this is going to be rewarding, rejuvenating, not only for relationships, but also financial matters. Another theme to talk about is that there are 6 trines this month. All of them are Earth, which is awesome, which means we have physical blessings, material blessings. And we have 1 conjunction, also Earth, which means there is some emphasis days, which we'll talk about when we get into it. We do have 2 squares, and both of them have Venus involved in it. Okay, so the first one is going to be a direct Venus squaring with Jupiter, who's retrograde. And this is going to be an interesting one because, like I mentioned, going parallel but in opposite direction. And there can be this ideology that we adopt around this time that maybe we and our goals are not able to meet, or our value system, our belief system, they are not able to meet. Okay, so if we move with that assumption, it's not going to do us any favors. It can just seem like we're doing a lot of things but we're going nowhere. That's what it can seem like. But that does not have to be that way. Okay, now keep in mind, Venus in this square is going to be in shadow phase, and that is again indicating that Venus is not yet in full power, so it can't really help Jupiter with much, or it can't really do anything. It can't share the experience as such. It's just going about in its own lane. And Jupiter is in retrograde, so it's kind of in that asleep state, so it's not able to exert itself fully around this time either. So with that, if you mix in the square, the illusion or the assumption that we don't have power, or that we still have a lot of other things to be taken care of before we start moving towards our goals, that can be quite strong. But the plus side is, if we remove that assumption, that initial thing, and just go with things with an open mind, an open heart, and just give it a shot, it's not going to be this way. It is actually quite blissful. It can help you recognize what you're really looking for in life and all of that. We'll get into the actual effects more as I talk about your zodiac. Next, the other square is also with Venus direct, but this square, she's out of shadow. Okay, she's going to square with Uranus. And what's interesting is Uranus is going to be retrograde, right? So all this month of August and even July, Venus was squaring with Uranus. In the first phase, she was going into shadow, so she was losing strength. So Uranus was kind of winning this square, let's say. In the second month, in August, Venus was fully in retrograde, so she was not in the mood to contest with Uranus's whims and fancies. Okay, so again, Uranus wins that. This would be the first time where Venus is stronger and Uranus is kind of like, okay, well, I've made whatever I needed to make as a change, and what do you have to say? And what's even more interesting is that Venus also rules Taurus, where Uranus is sitting. So she can really dictate how we're going to take advantage of the changes that have already happened, the breakthroughs we have made, the realizations that have occurred in the months of July and September. Venus is now going to put that into context, put a more pleasant spin to it. Like, it doesn't have to be so drastic. We can, take it one step at a time and make the best of it. So all in all, it seems a little optimistic. And we also have an opposition. That's the only opposition. So one opposition, one conjunction. In opposition, we have Virgo again being involved, but here we're going to learn to balance the emotion side of it. So it's nice that we don't have a completely practical and logical month, which generally happens when we have so much Virgo and Libra presence, but we also have a little bit of emotion mixed in there, so we're able to kind of come back to center. Okay, fourth storyline, let's talk about the moon phases. We have a new moon in Virgo along with Mercury going direct. That's going to be on the 15th. And we also have a full moon in Libra on the 29th. And this is going to be the date that Venus squares with Uranus. So both days we have some important events occurring. So these lunar phases are not going to be boring, to say the least. We'll talk about it a lot more when we get into your zodiac. But in essence, new moons talk about new potentials and new beginnings. Meanwhile, full moons talk about completion of a cycle or pivoting into a new direction. Quite fateful. There can be external help and triggers that kind of show us and point where we should be headed next, basically. Now, the fifth storyline is that eclipse is coming about very soon. So September is sort of a drum roll phase. And at first, we might not feel it too much because we're kind of busy with the whole slumber of all the planets being retro. Then on the 4th, Venus goes direct and so on and so forth. So slowly we start waking up and getting into the mode of realizing the fateful changes that the eclipses are going to bring. Because those fated changes, they are, again, universally directed. And because so many of these outer planets are retrograde, we are, like I mentioned, we don't have that much resistance. We're more accepting of what's coming in. So this is going to be an interesting eclipse season in October, and we're starting to see what it could be about. Okay? All right, let's start with your specific reading. So first, let's talk about your planetary movements and how and where it is really affecting you. So we have Jupiter turning retrograde on the 4th, and that is going to be in your first house. So this is the house of your personality, your attitude, how you're showing up in the world, what you feel about yourself, and so on. And the same day, Venus in Leo is going to go direct, and that is falling in your 4th house of home, family, roots, and inner self. So there's going to be two very important themes that are changing and shifting around this time, right? You are likely to be evaluating what your belief systems are around yourself. How do you see yourself in the world? What is your impact? This can also be you recognizing your mentorship qualities or where you can be a teacher or a guide figure for others. It's also about recognizing how you have become an elder of sorts. This can be literal, but it can also be just sense of feeling that comes up, that you need to take more responsibility, or you want to take more responsibility and ownership, accountability of yourself and your life. Now, because Venus is going it's going direct at this time, this can indicate that ongoing themes that have started in July, in August, there can be a further clarity or a conscious integration of all the knowledge and information that has come in the past 2 months. So this for you is going to be in your home and family sphere. Perhaps you are recognizing what type of decor you want to go for, what your new aesthetic is. Perhaps you have been renovating, or you are deciding to renovate in a different way than you initially imagined. So if you were thinking of, adding an extra wall, you instead decide to break down a different wall and make a bigger room instead. This can also talk about, in terms of your family dynamics, that you are able to exert your love and showcase and express your love, and also ask the same from your family members in the way that, makes everybody heard and understood and affectionate, basically. If you have any real estate type of professions, this can be about you finding more success and blessings. Now, Venus, of course, rules your sign, and also it rules the Libra part of your chart, which is your 6th house of work, routines, your lifestyle and habits as well. So whenever she's going direct and she's in a happy place, she's able to bless both of these areas of your chart. And therefore, with Venus turning direct, you're getting lots of opportunities for personal development, but also incorporating into your life healthy habits and healthy routines that make you feel like a million. Now, the same day, actually, let's first talk about another planet changing signs, and then we'll talk about the aspects a little bit later. We have Mercury in Virgo going direct, and we have Virgo for you in the 5th house of creativity, children, inner child, self-expression, and joy, fun, dating, romance, all of these things. So when Mercury was retrograde in this particular house, it could be that you were kind of revisiting, revising, and kind of understanding how you want to date now, or do you want to date? How can you improve your quality of fun? How can you reconnect with yourself, your physical body, or maybe grounding yourself? Perhaps you enjoy cooking, and you could have learned some new recipes around this time. And when it goes direct, you're putting that into action, you're showcasing it to others. This can also indicate that you discover a new hobby during the retro phase, and now in the direct phase, you kind of make it a part of your life. You add that to the flow of things. So it shows good promise, and in general, when Mercury goes direct, you can sign contracts, you can make some, purchases as well, which you see fit. Okay, now let's get into the aspects. First of all, I would like to mention that there's a whole bunch of things going on in the Virgo part of your chart, and Virgo is at a harmonious degree to your personal sign of Taurus. So it is going to bring in lots of opportunities, and also Virgo is making lots of trines with the planets within Taurus. Okay, so lots of opportunities and blessings. This can also talk about resolutions and clarity coming from ongoing situations. So let's talk about all the trines first. We have Mercury trining Jupiter, and that is going to happen twice. First on the 4th of the month, and the second time it will be on the 25th. The type of effect you will feel from both of these trines with the same planets is going to be quite different because of some factors. We'll get into that in a second. Also, we have Sun trining with Jupiter and Uranus. Sun trine Jupiter is going to be on the 8th, and Sun trine Uranus is going to be on the 16th. And wherever the Sun goes, we have the focus, and when it is in a blessing aspect, it is going to bring about some revelations from the inside out. The re-evaluations of belief systems and the changes that have occurred in the past are going to kind of come into the conscious mind a little bit more, and we can kind of move forward from that point. And for you, like I mentioned, it is affecting your personal space and your joy and fun expression in life, right? So the changes that have occurred in the past 2 months, you're kind of understanding that in a new light, and you're integrating that into your sense of self, and how can you kind of express yourself differently or better, improve the quality of your own life, and just kind of upgrade in general. Mercury will also trine with Uranus, but that is at the very end of the month on the 30th. And once again, this is highlighting the same areas of the chart, but whenever we talk about Mercury trines, we talk about mental clarity, adding things into a process or writing things down, maybe having a different system, a different flow of things, mindset changes, how you communicate changes, and all of those things, okay? Research, study, travel, all of these things are associated with Mercury. It's a little bit different. Both of them, Mercury and Sun, can talk about clarity, but they are quite different types of clarity, right? Okay, and now let's back up a little bit and look at the differences between Mercury trining Jupiter on the 4th versus the 25th. The first one, on the 4th, Mercury is still retrograde at this time. That's a very major difference. And also the Sun is going to be in Virgo season, which is the zodiac in which Mercury is placed at this time. So it is going to be more about recalibration. Jupiter is retro, Mercury is retro at this time, so we're looking at how we believe things and how that translates to how we think about everyday life, right? There's like so many background processes going on. I'm kind of seeing concentric circles when I talk about this particular aspect. So lots of things to recognize about ourselves. That's a very nice opportunity, and especially for you, because again, it's hitting that personal house, that first house. And the second one is going to be when Mercury is direct. So there is a lot more mental clarity around this time. It's also slowly shifting out of the shadow phase. It's almost out. So, it is going to give you more clear information and ideas, basically idea generation and methodology of how to go about these shifts and changes occurring in this particular month. And also, another thing to keep in mind is that the focus is shifting beyond the 23rd when the Sun moves into Libra season, right? So earlier, in the first 22 days of the month, we are constantly thinking about this earthiness, okay? We're thinking about what's practical, what's reasonable, what is achievable in this time. What are the small little things I can do to make my life better? That's essentially what's going on. But 23rd onwards, when the Sun moves into Libra, we move into, how can I improve my living space and make it more aesthetic, beautiful? Like I said, renovations and all of that can start around the 23rd. Also, it can talk about what are my relationships at work, you could ask. Okay, what is my relationship with work? What type of projects am I interested in? What am I connecting with right now? So these things are going to be more in focus. There can be new projects coming in or different projects you're encountering ideas coming through around the 15th or so that you want to be working on 23rd onwards with like full force. So on the 25th, the trine that you get is going to be more taking into account all of these new shifts and changes that you are encountering in the month of September. And that really puts in some new improved work processes. It can even be still that, you are dealing with your personal stuff because, again, Jupiter is retrograde, your beliefs are still coming up, and perhaps there's a better way. How can I expand and grow and upgrade? That's the essential driving force this month for these processes and clarity to come about. Okay, so quite different, even though it's the same aspect with the same houses and the same planets. Okay, now there is another trine I did not talk about. This is the Sun in Virgo trining with Pluto in Capricorn, and Pluto is retrograde. So this is also an Earth trine, but it is activating a different house, right? So Virgo stays the same, that's your 5th house, and Capricorn is in your 9th house of belief systems, foreign travel, foreign cultures, expansion of the mind, teaching, mentorship, and foreign cultures in general. It can be that you are having a nice conversation with someone who does not work with you directly, but you might, collaborate over the phone, or you're traveling abroad to meet this person. It can be that you have already been thinking about this in the past, but perhaps have not gotten around to it, and this would be a nice opportunity to connect with that opportunity. And what else? There can be some changes going on with regards to your immigration or visa procedures, if that applies for you. And there can be some processes that you've had to complete, some documentation or research work might have gone into this whole situation. Because we have this trine coming up here, it indicates there's some positive change or some new information that comes to light is going to help you with an ongoing transformation. All in all, it's a pretty pleasant month because of the aspects here. Now, another thing to keep in mind, there is one conjunction. This is on the 6th. The Sun meets with Mercury. Mercury is retrograde at this time. All of this is happening in your 5th house of Virgo, which represents that creativity and inner children. So this is the point where you can get lots of clarity from your inner self. It can be about something that you are concerned with, like how can I improve this? How can I do this better? How can I communicate much better so that I can attract the right kind of partnership, so that, my dates don't go haywire. And when I'm trying to be creative, how can I best put my best foot forward, basically? How can I produce the best stuff, essentially? Right. So when the Sun meets with Mercury in this particular state, there is that light shedding, clarity coming, new information that is just helping, basically, you move towards the solution. Very nice stuff. Now, another thing that we should talk about is about this opposition between the Sun and Neptune. So the Sun, again, is in Virgo, that's your 5th house, and we have Neptune, who's retrograde in Pisces, in your 11th house. So the opposition between 5th and 11th can sometimes be that you want to express yourself creatively, originally, or you want to unleash your inner child, but then there are certain other things that you don't yet recognize from the outside world. It can be that you have some other commitments regarding your aspirations, or your friends might need you, or there's some other things going on regarding what you want to show up as in the world. For example, you might enjoy working with herbs and gardening, but with Neptune in Pisces, you might be like, well, but I don't know what that means. I don't know how I can help others out with this, because it doesn't make sense for me to make like 10,000 bottles of jam just because I'm interested in it if I have no way of putting it out there, if it's not going to be useful to anyone in a healing modality, or even to bring in joy and bliss and happiness, or even just to express your creativity. If it's not going to be channeled in any way, you might feel a little bit blocked around this time, especially if you're an artist. Neptune retrogrades are usually associated with creative blocks, but that doesn't mean that you can't channel at all. It just indicates that there might be a different perspective, switching up your environment, or switching up the way that you generally tap into that inspirational mindset, which is going to help you out. Additionally, Neptune retrograde means that there is a tinge of reality there. So imagination and just letting loose and the illusory mind might be quite blocked around here, which is why people generally experience this. But that does not mean that you cannot acquire this inspiration through the everyday objects you encounter. So it's going to be these small little things that you do on a regular basis that is going to bring in this inspiration. So be as mindful as possible, be as present and grounded as possible. That's what's going to bring in more bliss and joy. Let's talk about the Venus aspects, okay? So first, Venus is going to square with Jupiter on the 17th, and Jupiter is retrograde at this time. And once again, keep in mind at this point, the sun is in Virgo season. So as the sun is in Virgo, we're focusing on the material sides of things, processes, lifestyle, and all of that. And also that Venus is in shadow phase. Okay, the second square that Venus will make is going to be on the 29th with Uranus. Both of these planets, Jupiter and Uranus, are in your zodiac of Taurus, right? And both of them are retrograde. But with this particular square with Uranus, Venus is going to be fully active. It's out of shadow zone on this particular day, in fact. But the sun is going to be in Libra. Fortunately, Libra season is more of an opportunity for this particular aspect because Venus rules it, and it's at a harmonious angle with Venus here. Okay, so the focus that we have going on towards the later half is going to help us kind of realize our goals towards the directions that we have been planning for or have been desiring but have been waiting for a breakthrough or for some other reason. Let's talk about the first square a little bit more. This one is interesting because both of them are benefics, but it's as though both of them are in a similar phase, but on the opposite sides of the spectrum. Venus has just finished her retrograde cycle and she's still in shadow phase. Meanwhile, Jupiter has just started the retrograde phase. So it's sort of like they see each other, but they don't quite meet yet, right? So we can draw parallels from the experiences, but it might be hard to put two and two together. On the flip side, if we remove the assumption that that's different and I'm different, or this area of life is very different and I'm totally different, then we can find a way to glue these two guys together, because ultimately both of them want the expansion and benefit for each one of us, right? So for you, again, Leo and Taurus falls in that fourth house of home and family, and Taurus is, of course, your zodiac, so personality, appearance, and all of that. So you are now having this newfound understanding of where you're coming from. What are you acquiring, or what have you acquired from your home and family environment? Who have you been growing up? What have you enjoyed while growing up? What are these new seeds of inspiration that are budding within you that are yet to be realized? And also evaluate, with Jupiter retro in Taurus, what beliefs hold you back currently from realizing those desires. So you see, these guys are not separate. It might seem separate in the moment, but they are actually very connected. So when we see from that perspective, you'll be much better able to understand what's going on around this time, and also integrate the events much more consciously, actually. Okay, so that's a nice one. And the other square that's ultra interesting for me, honestly, because Venus has been squaring with Uranus in July, in August, although it was a little bit separated in August, but it was still in that square aspect with Uranus. And all this time, Uranus was moving direct, so it was pretty strong. It was creating all of the changes that it wanted to, and setting up new structures, breaking us out of the mold and giving us this liberating type of feeling. At times that can feel quite destabilizing, right? Now, because Venus rules Taurus, it is important that Venus be in an active role while all of these changes are happening. But unfortunately, that was not the case. And there was a lot of soul searching to do and many other things to figure out before we could incorporate the changes. So now would be the first time when Venus is full on ready to take on anything it wants, and Uranus is in a weaker position. Okay, hierarchically looking at it. So what happens now is that all the changes that have occurred already, we have a chance to absorb it. Venus is now ready to take on that liberation and freedom. She is able to speak for herself. She can be a radical force for change in this particular space. If for you, it can be about breaking out of some norms within the family, some things that have always been done. It can even be yourself, breaking out of your own shell and getting outside of your comfort zone and just discovering a totally new facet of you. What you thought would never be possible can be possible around this time. Now, because these outer planets are retrograde, you have more of this chance to take the initiative yourself, create this bold change yourself. Okay? Finally, let's talk about the moon phases. We have the new moon in the sign of Virgo. That's on the 15th. It's the same day that Mercury turns direct. So Virgo matching up. The ruler is over there. So there's going to be some pivotal news coming around at this time, or some new revelations and information comes in, new mindset tricks, manifestation techniques, conversations, information regarding your documentation or such, that is going to kind of plant new seeds. This is the time where new ideas can come to you with regards to children or creativity and self-expression. There can be, I'm getting poetry and new recipes that I was talking about earlier. This can be the time where you just feel this potent burst of excitement and exuberance. Now, this new moon is going to be trining with Uranus in Taurus, and Uranus, as we've noticed already, is retrograde. I talk a lot about these things, by the way, in the overview as well, just like a quick rundown. So if you're interested, you can just listen to that. I would always recommend listening to that first and then the main section, but you do you. Anyway, so it is trining with Uranus here. It can talk about these new information or potential that's budding for you, can be especially liberating for your personal self. Okay, you're likely doing all of this a little bit in the background. Maybe not everything is public, but the things that you are producing to the outer world, that is again having a reflective quality to it. So let's say you publish your poetry online and that makes you think like, whoa, I actually did that. That then challenges what you are used to. You broke out of your own mold, and that itself can be like, wait, hang on, I have to really absorb this over here, right? It's sort of that vibe. Okay, we have a full moon in the sign of Aries. That's on the 29th, and the sun is going to be in Libra, moon is in Aries. Full moons are a time of completion and pivot points, especially if things has been going on which are very off track. We just need to abandon certain things and kind of figure out a way to begin again, or rather continue in a different trajectory. In parallel to this full moon, we have that square between Venus and Uranus that I talked about just recently. So it's going to be quite a dynamic one. Aries itself is an initiatory energy, and it is full of passion, new life, and it wants to do things. Okay, it does not want to sit and think and wonder and all of that. It just wants to go for what it knows it can do. It what it deserves, essentially. So lots of courage, bravery, strength, and stamina can come about here. And Aries falls in your 12th house. So this can talk about like finding new ways of resting well, or meditation techniques that actually work for you, how to calm yourself down, how to de-stress yourself, or quite the opposite. How can you motivate yourself more and work on your willpower in the backdrop? What little exercises and changes can you do that are going to benefit this? On another level, this can talk about, having vivid dreams during your sleep life. If you go for hypnosis sessions or you do this by yourself, that can as well give you some new information, and that can be especially invigorating and kind of energizing to you. Now, Venus in Leo is at a trine angle with this particular full moon, so it is going to absolutely help you out in recognizing newer facets of yourself, but also kind of integrating that in a deeper level. Your intuition is as well going to be sharper around this time. So that's what I have for you. Thank you for being here. I really hope you enjoyed and that the messages help you out throughout the month. Stay tuned for the tarot reading as well. I will be uploading them soon. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you're notified whenever that's up. And if you enjoyed the reading, please do like and comment your thoughts if you have any. It will be really lovely to hear back from you, and it really helps the channel grow as well. I will see you some other time. Until then, take care. Bye.